January marks National Sex Trafficking Awareness Month. Executive Director of Refuge For Women, Deanna Lynn, is a survivor. She has written 2 books on the topic and joins us today to talk about her journey. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Yes, thank you for inviting me.
So before you wrote these books, you also were a survivor yourself, and before you became Executive Director of Refuge For Women, how did you get involved in this group?
With Refuge For Women? I actually just happened to have a really great mentor whose husband was preaching in California, and when she had heard a little bit more of my story, she realized that I was recovering from a lot. And as much as I did the whole pick yourself up by your bootstraps and just move on thing, she saw that I was kind of drowning in that approach, and so she just told me of a place where I could rest and get well and really unpack the things that led me there in the first place.
And your books touch on that. Give us a little background of what you talk about in your books.
Yeah, so the first book I felt like was going to be really helpful in today's culture, because there's so many movies out there about human trafficking and exploitation, and people come out of those movies wanting to be some sort of hero, and they don't even realize like first we've got to stop exploiting people in our own homes. Like first we got to put the pornography down. First we got to stop going to the strip clubs and stop buying escorts for all these like major events that are happening, because we're feeding the demand and we're justifying it by saying, well, these women are here by choice. And so I thought, well, you know, like I no longer have a choice. I don't have any rights to my image or what they did with everything that I had done as a teenager. And so I was like, what if I could just inform people of what it looks like when a woman says yes to being sold? And that's kind of what started as my first book.
And then you had a second book.
I did have a second book. Yes. So there was a topic that was really lacking in the mission field, in the industry of anti-trafficking and pro-human flourishing, and that's the integration process. You know, it's one thing to get out. It's one thing to be rescued. It's one thing to survive. But how do you go to a life of normalcy when you've seen every class of politician, religious leader, musician, drug dealer come into your room and use you for like horrid things? How do you start to relate to people again? And so after having gone through a healing program, I thought, what if I just wrote what it looks like to make friendships, to start dating, to go back to school, and touch on these things that are actually a shared human experience, but because of our trauma, maybe we had been delayed in experiencing and learning some of those things.
And Refuge for Women obviously touches on this too. It's a sisterhood.
Yes. Yeah, it's one forever family. Once you have gone through the program, whether you've gone through a 30-day portion of it or a 2-year, or have gone through like an entire 7 years, we stay connected because we know what it's like to have certain triggers out there that maybe other people don't have. And so to be able to reinforce like we're still healed, we're okay. Some of that stuff is going to come up. Our worst fears are going to happen. We will get approached. We will get recognized, but we're okay. We're going to be okay.
Right, and you know, Refuge for Women just came out with some apartments to help women, you know, have that community feel.
Yes, the Free to Flourish apartments, which is just a really big passion of mine, because you know, so many people they can go to their parents, they can go home when they mess up, right? But a lot of the women that we serve, their families are the ones that trafficked or exploited them, or helped lead them into it. So a lot of people who have gone through a program don't have those safe people. So what do you do when you go out there and you're like, maybe I don't like working here, or maybe I'm not a good student, or I've still got more skills to learn? We don't want women to feel like they have to rush that process. We want them to be free to explore and really pick the kind of life that they want to live.
Right, and you know, Kentucky ranks in the top 10 for this.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about that? And just,
I mean, when I first moved out here, people didn't even realize like how much this was happening in their backyard. And you know, a lot of people went out to strip clubs to bring meals. Some people are on the street. We just started our digital outreach program, reached out to 389 women who are advertised for purchase just in the last like 30 days or so. And it's relevant, it's everywhere. The demand is really high. Just around the Derby, you have 1,800 people that are advertised for purchase because they think it's acceptable to buy somebody for their entertainment. And so there's a lot of work to do in Kentucky, but together we're collectively doing something, you know, between fighting addictions and getting healthy and getting off the street. And there's just, all of us together are really trying to make Kentucky healthier.
And, you know, how can folks learn more about your books and Refuge for Women?
Well, you can get my books on Amazon, so that's easy. Purchased Leaving the Sex Trade, and then Integrated Living Beyond the Sex Trade are both on Amazon. And then refugeforwomen.org/Kentucky, and come get involved. You'd be surprised how many different kinds of volunteer teams we have to make this work.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Deanna. I really appreciate you coming in and telling your story.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.